And we're live. Welcome back to the Dystopian Book Club. I'm Daniel.
I'm Janet.
Yeah,
And Strangely Strange Jay is here with us.
Strangely Jay.
Strangely Jay. Tonight we're kicking off 1984, which is an epic. It's an epic book. Yeah, I mean, I've got a lot to say about it. Before I do want to plug Thomas Lipinski, Zero Sum Conclusion. We'll probably hit this book next, and there's a good chance the author, Thomas, is going to join us to review the book. So that could be, got a lot of audio in the background here. Could be fun to actually have the author here with us when we talk about the book. Don't know if he's going to want to review the book or if we're going to read the book, and he'll kind of be here for commentary. Not really sure, but I'm pretty excited. So we got a lot of stuff going on there for just a second. We're hitting 1984. So it was, I was looking at it from what I found, Orwell's last book, or Eric Arthur Blair was his real name. I believe 1984 was the last book he wrote, which is,
really?
I thought, kind of interesting. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, I was a little surprised on that. We can jump into the author. Well, I've got a lot of stuff. Oh, sorry. What was that, Jay?
I didn't know that. No.
I didn't know that either. Yeah, I've been poking around trying to find as much as I can about the book, of course, just to have some context. And from what I read, it sounds like it was his last book, which is kind of cool. You know, if you think about it and everything he did in his. It was. Yeah, it was. I mean, we'll jump into it, but I mean, the level of accuracy in his dystopian prediction is pretty scary, you know, in terms of where we are today versus how he predicted the world would be in, 1984. He was back in 1949, I believe, is when it was written. So he kind of, he painted a pretty dark picture in a lot of ways. It feels like we're living in that world now, or we're getting close to living in that world now.
He should have played the lotto.
Right, he should have played the lotto. I don't know if they had the lotto back then, but he probably would have done well.
He could have bet on the horses back then.
He could have bet on the horses, probably.
Yeah, I know that.
So I was looking for some video of George Orwell, since this is his second book, really, we've hit. Third book I've read recently.
Oh, yeah. Animal Farm
was one. And then, and I couldn't find I couldn't find a lot of video of him. There was one video of him, like, running across a field with a group of like 10 people that might allegedly have been the only video actually taken of him. So I don't think there's actual video. There was sort of an interview with Orwell that I found, but it wasn't actually him. And so I'm like, okay, that's probably not worth digging into. It's just someone playing Orwell and like doing an interview with Orwell. But I looked it up. It's like, it's not really him. But I wanted to find something to kind of connect with the guy, and I didn't find a lot.
Couldn't even find a picture of the man?
There's pictures. Yeah, there's pictures of him, but not like.
Yeah, it's not the same.
I was hoping for like an interview. I was hoping for an interview, and I did not couldn't really find anything.
Maybe TV was, I don't know. Was TV big then? Are we still doing radio stuff?
We were probably still doing radio stuff. Yeah. There might have been some radio stuff. Yeah. TV
you might be looking for something that didn't really exist.
It's too long ago. I would have liked to have found something cool like that to incorporate. I did not. Said I sort of watched a fake interview with him, and I was going to play it, but I'm like, it's a fake interview with him. So really, what's the point?
What do you mean fake?
Well, it's. So they did a show. They did a
actors reenactment,
kind of an actors reenactment of him. Yeah. So it's not. It's an actor playing him in an interview. Which is not exactly the same thing, but yeah. If I could have found something better, I would have played it just to get into the Orwell mindset. But yeah, his name was Eric Arthur Blair, English novelist, poet, essayist, journalist, and critic who wrote under the pen name George Orwell. His work characterized by lucid prose, social criticism, opposition to totalitarianism, and support of democratic socialism. Produced literary criticism, poetry, fiction, and problematic journalism. He's known for the allegory novel Animal Farm, 1945, the dystopian novel.
The piggies have milk.
Right. 1984 and 1949. The nonfiction works including The Road to Wigan Pier in 1937, and documents the experience of the working class in the industrial north of England, and Homage to Catalonia and his account experiences soldiering for the Republic of the Spanish Civil War are as critically respected as his essays on politics, literature, language, and culture. That's just a little blurb on him. He said we've done a couple.
Good to know them.
Hit a couple of his books recently. I might keep seeking out his books and reading them because he certainly had a very
I like the way he
powerful
writes.
perspective. Yeah, he writes really well. So we are going into 1984. Found a lot of stuff on it. Of course, there's a ton out there, but as a high level, just quickie description, it's a dystopian novel and cautionary tale by English writer George Orwell. It was published on June 8th of June, 1949 by Sierkin Wahlberg, is Orwell's ninth and final book completed in his lifetime. Thematically, it centers on the consequences of totalitarianism, mass surveillance, and represents regimentation of people and behaviors within society. Orwell, a democratic socialist, modeled the authoritarian state in the novel on the Soviet Union in the era of Stalinism and Nazi Germany. More broadly, the novel examines the role of truth and facts within societies and the ways in which they can be manipulated. So that's just a quick blurb.
It's
something. Oh yeah, no, absolutely, yeah. I mean, it. I'll keep going on it, but I was reading on the themes, and it's like he didn't create the theme dystopian. Like the idea of the genre of dystopian had been around before. I think we'll hit that book Utopia, which you had mentioned before, Jay. That might be the first real dystopian, but they're like, he defined it. He defined the genre. He didn't invent the genre, but he defined the genre.
Leaned into it.
Right. He defined the genre.
Yeah.
Something I thought was fun. I found a list of reviews of the novel from 1949. So these were the original reviews from people when the novel was first released. So I thought I'd read through a couple of those because I thought that was kind of fun, being that it's, it was the perspective of the people at the time. So the first one was from V.S. Pritchett, writing for the New Statesman, June 18, 1949. And it is 1984 goes to the reader like an east wind, cracking the skin, opening the sores. Hope has died in Mr. Orwell's wintry mind, and only pain is known.
Wow.
Yeah. I do not think I've ever read a novel more frightening and depressing, and yet such are the originality, the suspense, and the speed of writing and withering indignation that is impossible to put down.
Well, at least that's nice.
Right. The faults of the author Orwell as a writer, monotony nagging the lonely schoolboy shambling down the one dispiriting track, are transformed now. He now rises to a larger subject. So that
people spoke so much more eloquently.
We've
really dumbed stuff down.
We have dumbed stuff down.
Yeah. But
it was
interesting. It was interesting because they're coming out of the World War II where Orwell takes it off. What if this happened instead? And so they would have been seeing it like, if this had have happened, this kind of could have been our future. I can understand why they were like, it was pretty intense on them, like you're saying at the start. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. It was fresh in their minds coming out of Spanish Civil War, coming out of World War II. Yeah, I mean, that was the world people were living in at the time. And that novel both characterized it, but then took it forward, took it forward as into kind of a pseudo science fiction futuristic world.
Clearly depressing,
yeah, obviously depressing. It is. It's not.
I mean, look at what we have now, though. I mean, most of our books are like that. I guess that might have been a shocking for the time to be so edgy.
Yeah, absolutely. So she went on for another page, but I'll jump to a different one here. So we had the Guardian.
I think she made her point just in that first sentence.
Yeah. So the Guardian, June 10th, 1949. Through all thinking people, as they are sometimes called, must by now have more than a vague idea of the dangers which mankind runs from modern techniques. George Orwell, like Aldous Huxley, feels that the more precise we are in our apprehensions, the better. Huxley's ape, in essence, was in the main a warning of the biological evils the split atom may have in store for us. Orwell's 1984 speaks of the psychological breaking in process to which our up-to-date dictatorship can subject non-cooperators. The story is brilliantly constructed and told. Winston Smith of the party, but not the inner party, kicks against the pricks, with what results we shall leave readers to find out for themselves. It has become a dreadful occasion of anguish today, conjecturing how much torture even a saint can put up with, if the end is certainly not to be spectacular martyrdom and vaporization, but vaporization. So that was part of
the sad thing is this book is so much what's going on today.
It's the sad thing.
So the people who are reviewing it are like, how depressing is this world you're talking about? This is what we live in.
It somewhat is, yeah.
A lot of it is what
we live in now. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I saw many parallels, reading through the book,
Absolutely. Yeah, unfortunately. I mean, you see it all the time. So the last one I had was from Time magazine, June 20th, 1949. In Britain, 1984 AD, no one would have suspected that Winston and Julia were capable of crime think, dangerous thoughts, or a secret desire for own life, individualism. After all, party members Winston Smith was one of the Ministry of Truth's most trusted forgers. He had always flung himself heart and soul into the falsification of government statistics, and party member Julia was outwardly so good thinkful, naturally orthodox, that after a brilliant girlhood in the Spies, she became active in Junior Anti-Sex League and was snapped up by Pornosec, a subsection of the government fiction department that grounded on happy-making pornography for the masses. In short, the grim, gray London Times could not have been referring to Winston and Julia when it snorted contemptuously old thinkers, unbelly-fell age sock. Those whose ideas were formed before the revolution cannot have a full emotional understanding of the principles of English socialism. That was part of the Times.
That was very clever.
Oh, here we go. This was a good part. It says most novels about an imaginary world have as their central character and interpreter a man who somehow strays out of the author's own time and finds himself in a world he'd never made. But Orwell, like Aldous Huxley in Brave New World, builds his nightmare of tomorrow on foundations that are firmly laid today. He needs to contemporary spokesmen to explain and interpret, for the simple reason that any reader in 1949 can uneasily see his own shattered features in Winston Smith, can scent in the world of 1984 a stench that is already familiar. So that was,
And they thought it was already happening in their time.
Then it was sort of already happening,
Which is possible. The other people might have just been living in, oblivion. And hadn't woken up to the fact that they could have been deceived by the government.
What could have happened, right? Imagine that.
Imagine that.
I mean, something I've mentioned a couple times, I was looking for it, and it's the Pew Research poll from 2023 says in the United States, only 15% of the population trusts the government.
That's sad.
15%.
And that 15% are probably people who are just really happy to be here because they may have just,
right? Who knows?
They might be immigrants who just came here and they're like, "I love America." Well, soon you'll realize.
Yeah, you'll realize. It means 85% of the population, at least in America, we don't trust the government. Like, how close to 1984 are we?
I'm assuming that a lot of nations are probably,
they're probably dealing with the same thing.
Probably dealing with the same thing.
Yeah, nobody trusts the government anymore.
Right.
So.
Yeah, the transparency. I was made a little joke that 15% is the government.
Right, they probably work for the government. Yeah, they probably work for it already.
And they're not saying that they don't trust themselves because they're getting a paycheck.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. They're like, we work there. It's great. I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. Pretty
Something
amazing.
I do sort of want to point out though is to me there's a difference between the government and then the government, which is all the people, the cogs and the little wheels and the pedals and the belts that make the government work.
Right.
Like, they're good people. They want to, give the services. They want to make, the communities better, and they're just hobbled by the government, like the government.
Yeah. Right. No, absolutely. And I would not. Yeah, I wouldn't say they're all nefarious by any means. I did work for the state of California a long time ago, and most of the people I bumped into that worked for the state were just there waiting to retire. Like they had a great pension, they had a great retirement package. Like after 30 years, you retired on full pay. So if you went at 18, by the time you got to 48, you could retire on full pay. If you went in, say 25, now it's 55. But almost to a person, everybody I worked with was just waiting to retire.
People are just trying to make it.
Right. They were just trying to make it day to day. It wasn't this dark, nefarious organization.
No, the dark, nefarious is way higher.
Is much higher
than
up.
that. It's much higher.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because none of these are decision makers. They were just waiting to retire.
And people who you think are decision makers probably aren't the decision makers anyway.
Right.
There's still other
There's
people
other decision makers above the decision makers.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think so.
It feels like
I don't trust a lot of stuff.
Most don't. That's the Pew Research poll tells us most don't. Most people don't right now.
Yeah. I don't trust either of the major parties in
No.
They're just bought out by the corporations.
Right. The money. It's all about the money.
Yeah.
Oh.
So but yeah. So
you take care of that fan, man.
Yeah, I messed up the fan here. My computer's getting loud all of a sudden. Shouldn't be. All right. We'll just leave it like that. Okay. All right. So genre, dystopian fiction. So George Orwell, 1984 is a defining example of a dystopian fiction in that it envisions a future where society is in decline. Totalitarianism has created vast inequities and innate weaknesses of human nature, keep the characteristics in a state of conflict and unhappiness, unlike utopian novels which hold the hope for the perfectibility of man and the possibility of a just society. Dystopian novels like 1984 imply that the human race will only get worse if man's lust for power and capacity for cruelty go uncorrected.
That's
so
true.
I'll leave it at that. Yeah.
I've got some thoughts about are we going to chat about like things in the book in the future?
Absolutely, but we can now as well if you want. What'd you have?
I just thought it was interesting how they'd brought war into part of the sustaining of the culture. Like you were saying,
right? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Because, right. No, they talked a lot about
perpetual conflict.
Perpetual conflict
for the sake of conflict.
Right. Yeah. War for the sake of war. Yeah.
And to use up resources and
to keep the people oppressed. Yeah. Oh no, we got to spend all our money on war. We don't have money for that because there's war.
Right.
Yeah. Keep people in check. Endless wars. No, absolutely.
Yeah, that is a big theme. Human's nature when it comes unchecked. When you said, yeah,
absolutely. So science fiction, he does fit into science fiction, and there's a couple points in the book where I call it out. One, just to mention right away, in chapter 1, jumping ahead, he wakes up and the TV's on and everyone has to work out, right?
Yeah,
and they can see him. They're like, hey, hey, you 15743, you're not doing your jumping jacks. It's like, that's a Zoom. That's like doing Zoom workout, right? That's Peloton. Peloton's got that.
Yeah, but we're paying for that. No.
Right, yeah, Peloton's got
not
that.
Me. I don't.
Right, you watch the Peloton commercials and it's like you work out as a group. Yeah, people pay for that now.
Right.
So he predicted that like 60, 70, 80, whatever years ago it was. I didn't do the math. 60, 80 something years ago, he predicted Zoom workouts.
That really reminded me a lot of communist China.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, get up, do your exercises.
A lot of the stuff that I'd seen, like different documentaries and stuff, or news clips of everybody, doing their jumping jacks together.
Right. Get up and do your jumping jacks. I mean, and I looked it up. So the book was written 1949. 1949 was the year that closed caption TV cameras were released. So that was kind of new technology.
That's a big deal.
Right. So all this video surveillance didn't really exist at the time. So the idea that they're watching you through the TV or that anyone was watching you through any camera at all was kind of not a thing. I'm not saying he came up with the idea, but it was super, super new at the time. And obviously in his book, everyone's being watched all the time, but that wasn't really a thing. So that's sort of something I think he imagined, envisioned the future would be.
They developed it during the war, and then when they didn't need it for the war, they were like, well, what do we do with all this then? Oh, we'll just do it on the people.
Right. Yeah, exactly. We'll do it on the people. Now. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So science fiction and depicting a future civilization incorporates as yet undeveloped technologies and scientific advancements. 1984 is also an important example of science fiction, although it deviates from the genre in significant ways. Before 1984, popular science fiction tend to be set in exotic locations on distant planets in highly advanced societies several hundred years in the future. Orwell brought this frightening future vision in a very familiar wartime London with futuristic inventions not drastically different from familiar technologies. Typewriters have been replaced by dictation machines, and televisions have become flat screens permanently mounted to walls. But the function and roles of these future technologies are basically the same as the version familiar to readers in the late 1940s. And that's it, like flat screens on walls, that's normal now. Yeah. But that was not normal. Like I looked up the pictures of the TVs from the 1940s, and there are those giant cabinets with this little tiny TV in it. They weren't wall-mounted flat screens.
The cabinet consoles.
Right, yeah, the consoles.
That you tick, 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 tick.
Right, not wall-mounted flat screens with webcams.
Yeah.
You know. Today, many of the developments Orwell predicts are commonplace to readers, such as the helicopters that spy on citizens, which anticipate surveillance drones and other ways. However, his science fiction vision of the future is inaccurate in that he failed to anticipate the way people would use technology to record themselves and unwillingly share their private lives with the public. So that's kind of an interesting last sentence. Like, it is sort of true that we all have our cameras and we're taking pictures of ourselves. So we violate our own privacy with that. But I think that takes away from the reality of the world he's showing. But like, we got a web camera on us now. How much of that is recorded? You know, you had all the stuff with Snowden. There was a thing that if you had ever used, was it Yahoo chat back in the day? Every camera that ever showed on Yahoo chat was recorded and saved and transmitted to the government. Something on that.
Wow.
So it's all recorded.
People used to think that was just a big conspiracy theory too, until Snowden dropped the ball on all of it.
Like, no, it's all being recorded and saved.
Now everybody's like, oh, of course we're listened to all the time.
Yeah.
Of course we are.
Right. Yeah. I had some computer guy friends that were talking about in some data centers. There's a second, kind of route, and everything just goes to the government, and they store it all. And you say, oh, it's encrypted. But encryption gets broken all the time. So, I mean, it's kind of a thing you wonder, like how much.
Yeah.
Well, because then they can decrypt it later and see what everyone's doing.
Yeah. Okay, in case they need to.
So it's sort of that spying on you. But I think that's just normal now.
People just,
It's just assumed everything. Everyone's getting spied on.
I mean, like, I have everything turned off on my phone.
It doesn't matter.
All the apps, don't listen to me, don't have access to this. And we can be talking about something, and it can be something that I've never even looked up, and boom, there's an ad for it when the conversation's done.
Right. Yeah.
So tell me that my phone's not listening.
Not listening to everything they're saying. Yeah. Predictive advertising.
Right. They're not that predictive.
Right.
They're not that good.
Right. Yeah.
Some rando thing that we were talking about that I've never even thought of.
And
all of a sudden is on my Facebook newsfeed, the first thing that happens.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
We're listening to
everywhere. Oh yeah. Yeah. So in many ways, the world he imagined is here, more or less.
And then there's the other side too with the Orwellian thing is that there's only one input too. Like the inputs are very controlled, which I've noticed a lot with us too. Like the algorithm, what our content feeds are and what we pick. That we're getting funneled. We can get funneled into, it's
No, absolutely.
Sorry.
Absolutely. No, you're good. No need to apologize. We're having some puppy time here.
Yeah.
All right, we'll get to themes here.
She's done.
The dangers of totalitarianism was one of the themes. 1984 is a political novel written with the purpose of warning readers in the West of the dangers of totalitarian government, having witnessed firsthand the horrific lengths to which totalitarian governments in Spain and Russia would go in order to sustain and increase their power. Orwell designed 1884 to sound the alarm of Western nations, still unsure about how to approach the rise of communism. In 1949, the Cold War had not yet escalated. Many American intellectuals supported communism, which they do today, right? And the state of diplomacy between democratic and communist nations was highly ambiguous. In the American press, the Soviet Union was often portrayed as a great moral experiment. Orwell, however, was deeply disturbed by the widespread cruelties and oppressions he observed in communist countries and seemed to have been particularly concerned about the role of technology in enabling oppressive governments to monitor and control their citizens, which is absolutely kind of where we're at today. There's some more there, but I'll skip it. Psychological manipulation. The party barrages its subjects with psychological stimuli designed to overwhelm the mind's capacity for independent thought. The giant television in every citizen's room blasts a constant stream of propaganda designed to make the failures and shortcomings of the parties appear to be triumphant successes.
That would drive me crazy.
It's the word, yeah. But I mean, you already get that. We already get that with our phones and social media feeds, and
yeah, but we can turn it off. They couldn't. It was just, I was always running.
Yeah,
it's like when they try to break somebody.
Yeah,
you know, when they
in the torture movies. When they try to break someone, it's just like constant stuff over and over. That's what it would feel like. Yeah. The telescreens also monitor behavior everywhere they go. Citizens are continuously reminded, especially by the means of the omnipresent signs reading Big Brother's watching you, that the authorities are scrutinizing them. The party undermines family structure by inducing children into an organization called the Junior Spies, which brainwashes and encourages them to spy on their parents and report any instances of disloyalty to the party. The party also forces individuals to suppress their sexual desires, treating sex as merely a procreative duty, whose end is the creation of new party members. The party then channels people's pent-up frustration and emotion into intense, ferocious displays of hatred against the party's political enemies. Many of these enemies have been invented by the party expressly for this purpose. So a lot there. And I said, I mean, I think we see that now. We see a lot of that now. You know, the kids spying on the parents. And
in the book, it happens too.
It happens. Yeah, it happens in the book, and it happens in real life. You know, the kids spying on the parents and reporting them. And I mean, that's not far from where we're at now, if we're not there already. Yeah. You know, yeah.
And
unfortunately,
and breaking up family ties, sort of things as well. You know,
absolutely.
You know, and I can see, and something I can also see is like you were saying before, Janet, with the hyped up, the forced sincerity, like the forced hype for and it's always on. You know, you're always having to be on, and and I just where was I going with that? Sorry. We have that forced sincerity, like, you know, you can't be on the fence, you've got to pick a side. Oh, you don't care about this cause enough, and you know, like we see it even.
Social pressure all the time. Right. Oh, you can't be neutral, you have to, as you said. We heard that a lot over the last couple of years. You know, if you're neutral, then you're part of the problem. Have to pick a side.
Right. Sometimes you're just like, I don't care.
Right.
I just want to be left alone.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Like, I don't want to get into it, people. This is your thing, not mine. I just want to be left alone. But no, people force you to
and
pick.
Sometimes I can see valid points in both sides. You know,
absolutely.
Sometimes there really is a fence, you know.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree. Many have absolutely valid points on both sides. If you're willing to kind of be open-minded and explore both the arguments, you probably end up somewhere in the middle. Right. But nowadays, that's not okay.
Yeah.
Right. You're not allowed to have your own opinion and just be somewhere in the middle and be like, hey, these guys are right about that. You're right about that, but we're in the middle. You know,
it's always that gray area that most people stick in is in the gray, because not everything's not always black and white.
Yeah.
When I remember when my undergraduate work was in psychology, and that was really big. Like, there is a gray area that most people stay in.
Yeah.
But that was, God knows how long ago. That was a long time ago.
Right.
And I'm sure that's not what they teach now.
No, probably not. Yeah. Nowadays, it's probably you have to pick a side,
Mm-hmm.
and it's got to be the right side, the correct side. Yeah.
So pity we don't have the, you know, propaganda enough. You go, you have to pick it. It's Eurasia now, not East Asia. Oh, okay, sweet. That's the side we're on, is it? Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Are we in war with East Asia?
Yeah. Eurasia or East Asia? Which one? Which one? We're always at war with East Asia.
Right. Hurry up and get rid of all that stuff.
Yeah.
Mm.
All right, next theme is physical control. In addition to manipulating their minds, the party also controls the bodies of its subjects. The party constantly watches for any sign of disloyalty, to the point that, as Winston observes, even a tiny facial twitch could lead to an arrest. The person's own nervous system becomes his greatest enemy. The party forces its members to undergo mass monitoring, exercises called the physical jerks.
I would be in so much trouble. I have resting
B-face,
you know, so I've been taken a long time ago. I'm not advanced. No.
The party forces its members to undergo mass morning exercise called the physical jerks, and then to work long, grueling days at government agencies, keeping people in a general state of exhaustion. Anyone who does manage to defy the party is punished and reductant through systemic and brutal torture. Re-educated through systemic and brutal torture. After being subjected to weeks of this intense treatment, Winston himself comes to the conclusion that nothing is more powerful than physical pain. No emotional loyalty or moral conviction can overcome it. By conditioning the minds of the victims with physical torture, the party is able to control reality, convincing its subjects that 2 + 2 = 4. And that comes up later on.
At the end,
So absolute physical control. I hope the FBI doesn't watch this video, since they apparently like going door to door if you say the wrong stuff on social media.
We saw that.
Hopefully the FBI is
I am so boring.
They don't need to get any ideas. No ideas on the facial twitches and stuff like that. Like, look at his face. Get him.
Actually, there's an interesting point that you brought up before, Janet, with like, would there be a bias with women's, because you know how like, oh, women should smile more and stuff like that, like you know?
Oh yeah, I'd be in trouble. I mean, I remember my boss used to be like, "What's wrong with you, crabby?" I'm like, "Dude, I'm concentrating. You look mad." I'm like, I'm not mad. I'm just concentrating. Like, am I supposed to like? Supposed to be the 1950s housewife,
right?
Like,
smile, Stepford wife all the time,
right? Yeah, I would have. Please, I would be in so much trouble.
Right.
I know it.
No, I'm the same. I'm the same. A decade of hospitality taught me to just kind of smile, you know, when you're in, you know, on the side.
Most of my stuff I did on the phone. Like, we would always I had a lot of stuff that I had to do on the phone too, especially when you had parents that were like upset, and you'd be on the phone. Your face would say one thing, but you're like, hello.
That's funny. Where are we doing now?
We'll keep going. Another theme: control of information in history. The party controls every source of information, managing and rewriting the content of all newspapers and histories for its own ends.
They're gaslighting people.
And we get that now too. The party.
I mean, I wonder if anybody who's watching this, the 3 people who are probably watching, if they've actually seen the movie Gaslight, which is what gaslighting comes from. It was a great movie. I made you watch it.
We watched an old black and white movie.
I love those old movies from the back in those days. It did, yeah.
Right, coined the term gaslighting.
Where would you access that? Just on like a live wire, like torrents thing?
I wonder, because I think it was like 1920s.
I think we saw it for free, probably.
I think we saw it for free, unless it's one of the ones I own, because I own a lot of the old Cary Grant movies.
It's an old black and white movie.
It's an old black and white. Let me look it up.
Right,
I think
Gaslight. You could probably see it for free nowadays.
Oh God, I would think so, because it is so old.
Yeah. She's gonna look it up.
Yeah.
The party does not allow individuals to keep records of their past, such as photographs or documents.
1944.
1944. So
is what the film was from.
All right.
Yeah.
You could look up where to watch, probably.
Okay.
As a result, memories become fuzzy and unreliable, and citizens become perfectly willing to believe whatever the party tells them. By controlling the present, the party is able to manipulate the past, and in controlling the past, the party can justify all of its actions in the present. So we see that now. I mean, there's huge push for censorship.
You can watch Gaslight on YouTube.
Okay, so she's got the list.
You can work on YouTube TV or Google Play, or Max has it, Amazon Video. If you have Amazon Prime Video, it's free. Apple TV. Roku has it for free too.
Is it okay?
That's probably where we watched it because we have Roku.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's out there. It's findable.
It's what the government did to everybody.
Right. Yeah, the gaslight. It is pretty good. In this book, right? In this book, not in
fictionally.
We're talking about the book.
We're talking about fictionally the book. I'm not getting in trouble.
All right. Technology is a theme by means of telescreens and hidden microphones across the city. So yeah, they did the hidden microphones. They had cameras, but the hidden microphones, because once again, at the time this was written, the whole idea of like cameras everywhere wasn't a thing yet.
Yeah, it wasn't.
So much a thing. He did the cameras.
People.
It was bugging, right?
Old school.
Right. Yeah, there's microphones hidden in the trees.
Right.
Listening to everything. Because it wasn't so much a
people would
thing.
like say something in their sleep and they'd get in trouble.
Right. Yeah, because everybody was bugged because that's what they had. Though the screens, it could like see through the screens, which is obviously a thing now, but back then it wasn't so much a thing, not really. The party employs complicated mechanisms in 1984 was written in an era before computers to exert large-scale control on economic production and sources of information and fearsome machinery to inflict torture upon those it deems enemies. 1984 feels that technology, which is generally perceived as working towards a moral good, can also facilitate the most diabolical evil, which I would tend to agree with that.
Drones have shown us that.
Right, yeah.
War now is just a bunch of guys playing video games.
Right, with drones. Yeah. As the world saw yesterday.
As the world saw yesterday,
yeah. Yeah, giant
with
attack.
I saw like the anti-missile strikes of them just taking those out too.
Yeah.
Very sad.
Language as mind control, and we get a lot of that here in the U.S. A lot. One of Orwell's most important messages in 1984 is that language is of central importance to human thought because it structures and limits the ideas that individuals are capable of formulating and expressing. If control of language were centralized in a political agency, Orwell proposes such an agency could possibly alter the very structure of language and make it impossible to even conceive of disobedient or rebellious thoughts because there would be no words with which to think them. The idea manifests itself in the language of newspeak, which the party has introduced to replace English. The party is constantly refining and perfecting newspeak with the ultimate goal that no one will be capable of conceptualizing anything that might question the party's absolute power. So that's true. I mean, we see that now. You see the definitions of words changing all the time. Which is
hard. It's hard being old like me.
All right.
And knowing what a word meant for so long, and then it's completely. And I'm like, you're not using that in the right context, but it doesn't even mean that anymore.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Yeah, sometimes we'll get at antique stores and I'll buy old dictionaries, and you can look up like buzzwords that are very influential now. I'm like, well, that's not the same definition.
No.
Like it's amazing. 20 years, 30 years, the absolute definition of so many words has changed.
Well, it's so fast now because everything's online.
Right. It's easy
like when we stopped printing the dictionary, then you could just have things change rapidly.
Yeah.
Right. They can control words, what they mean instantly. Yeah. It's very Orwell of them.
Or something like that. I'm not sure that word means what you think it means.
Right. It's very, very Orwell of them. Yeah.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Another thing.
Sorry, I had to explain the meaning of mad to my youngest. Yeah, good. I go, that's mad. You know, like, oh, that's mad, man. Yeah, like, good. And she's like, why don't you like it? And why is it making you angry?
Yeah.
Like, nah. So yeah, it changes. Yeah.
It does. Yeah. Well, yeah. And even, as you're saying, like people using slang and stuff. Yeah. Especially our generations, we had a lot of words that we use differently.
I stopped asking my kids when they were in high school
not
what they
anymore.
meant.
Nowadays, not anymore.
It changed so quickly that they would say stuff and I'd be like, whatever.
Yeah. I've looked up no cap like 16 times and I still don't get no cap.
I don't even know what that means.
I still don't know what no cap means. I'm not sure what based means.
I'm not sure why,
I
but I
can't
think
get
no cap means I'm not lying. I think.
Is it okay? All right, could be.
Like for real, like
for
like
real. This is the real deal.
Like,
yeah.
I'm not sure why.
It probably does.
Maybe because they take the cap off, like.
Okay.
It's got to like go back to something. Like all of the stuff always goes back to something. You know.
Yeah.
Like we talked about this stuff before. Like getting your butt chewed out goes back to chickens.
It goes back to chickens, right? Right.
Because chickens will chew each other's butts out.
Chickens will do all that.
Literally.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
You know, I mean, stuff like a lot of it was farm stuff.
A lot of it's farm. Not anymore.
It's not farm stuff anymore.
Not anymore. It's all that came out of this rap song or something like that.
I have no use for it. None.
Yeah.
My pigs don't talk like that.
Pigs don't talk. We're not allowed the pigs to speak. Only formal English with the pigs here.
Right. Only formal. Proper English.
Right. Proper.
Mm-hmm.
Queen's English.
Exactly.
Yes.
They're noble.
They get the milk and the honey.
Yeah.
I
love language. It's good.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. All right. We're still going through themes here.
Oh, okay.
Stick with us. Loyalty. 1984, the party seeks to ensure the only kind of loyalty possible is loyalty to the party.
To the party.
The reader sees examples of virtually every kind of loyalty, from the most fundamental to the most trivial, being destroyed by the party. Neighbors and coworkers inform on one another, and Miss Parsons' own children reports him to the thought police because he was talking in his sleep.
Right.
Winston's half-remembered marriage to his wife fell apart with no sense of loyalty, even the relationship between customer and merchant is perverted as Winston learns that the man who sold him the very tools of his resistance and independence was a member of the thought police. Winston's relationship with Julia is the ultimate loyalty that is tested by the events in the book. I'll cut out the spoils that are here.
Yeah, don't give us.
But a lot about the only true loyalty allowed was loyalty to party. Nothing else mattered.
Right.
Which maybe we're sort of getting there. Maybe we got a ton more themes, but I might skip these ahead a little bit. A lot of great themes. Dystopian.
Yeah.
Dystopian. It's dystopian.
All right, dystopian.
And it's probably a lot like the world now. So
right.
There
you go.
A couple of the items I pulled out.
What you mean by the science fiction? It's definitely a science fiction because, you just got it so close to reality that it doesn't feel like science fiction.
Not now.
Right? He just nailed it. He was so close that it's like, no, that's normal. Man. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Flat screens in the walls? Like, we have that everywhere. What are you talking about? I got those in the in the other room.
No.
Yeah, he just nailed it so close that it doesn't feel science fiction at all.
Maybe he worked in Area 51.
Maybe he did. Right, right. No, he was a little British countryside guy. He didn't like cities. A couple of symbolism, kind of high-techy stuff. One was the telescreens. We already kind of beat them up. Omnipresent telescreens of the book. Most visible symbol of the party's constant monitoring of its subjects. Of course, we have cell phones now. Don't need no televisions in the walls. You can just get monitored all times right there.
Yep.
Big Brother throughout London. You had the posters of Big Brother. There was the idea of Big Brother. You're being watched. You're being controlled. Kind of there's this overall dark presence, which I think we have a little bit of that today. Couple items.
It's very godlike.
Right.
I mean, because I went to Catholic school, so big theme of Catholic school when I was growing up is God is watching.
Right.
That was always it. Like you didn't have to worry about messing up because if you messed up, God was watching you.
Right.
You're getting caught.
Right.
Even if your mom doesn't catch you, you've been caught.
You've been caught. Yeah.
That's what the nuns taught us.
And that's one thing I like, that there's the book The Trial, which is Kafka. There's a Kafkaesque-ism that I drop at work all the time, which is sort of the idea of management has got to be this faceless, kind of uncaring, all-knowing.
Like the wizard.
Right, kind of like the wizard from Oz, yeah. Just referred to as
I actually had an employee that used to call me the wizard.
Right, yeah.
But anytime he would call me up, he would be like, I'm getting a glimpse behind the big curtain.
The big curtain, right. Right. Just always has just this sort of faceless, nameless, kind of omniscience, big brother, or whatever you want to call it. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Double think. There's double speak. There's double think. I accused someone of double think today when I was talking to him online. But double think, I did. Yeah. Emerges an important consequence.
You're really
of the
proud
parties.
of yourself when you
accused
said
him of
that.
double think today. Massive campaign of large-scale psychological manipulation. Simply put, doublethink is the ability to hold two contradictory ideas in one's mind at the same time. As the party's mind control techniques break down an individual's capacity for independent thought, it becomes possible for that individual to believe anything the party tells them, even while possessing information that runs counter to what they're being told. So it's basically you think what they're told to think.
Yeah.
You think what you're supposed to think. And the reason I accused him of doublethink, totally not related to the book, was had to do with the Iranian attack on Israel. And there are some people now saying, well, it was a staged attack. It was a warning. They just fired a warning shot.
Iran?
Yeah. They're saying, well, it was just a warning shot. It was staged.
That's a lot of missiles for a warning
It was 300.
shot.
You're talking 300 missiles and drones and cruise missiles.
Yeah.
Just because 99% were stopped doesn't mean they knew they were going to be stopped.
They didn't know.
It may have been a failed attack, but to say, oh, no, it was
if
just
you
a
knew
warning
they were going to be stopped, you're not going to waste your money.
Right, yeah. 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 But he's
This
definitely,
is the dumbest thing ever.
he's in that 15% that believes anything the government says. So I'm like, it wasn't a warning shot. Sorry.
And those are going to be the people that are knocking on our door looking for food.
All right. Yeah. When something goes wrong.
When something goes wrong.
Right. Yeah.
Because those people aren't taking care of them.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Total doublethink. It's like you realize that's how ridiculous that is, but you're still telling me it is a warning shot. Nothing's happened. Nothing's going on. I'm like, it was a massive attack.
So what's a warning shot?
It was a massive attack.
Israel.
Right. Massive
Wasn't it
attack.
a retaliation? It was a retaliation shot for the consulate being bombed in Damascus.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the problem with the Middle East is everything's a retaliation.
Exactly.
For retaliation.
I mean, we can go back to the days prior to Jesus.
Right, going back to like 0 BC, it's always a retaliation.
The Middle East has been fighting for a long time.
Yeah, there's always a retaliation of a retaliation.
It's because of this. It's because of this.
Right.
And because it's so profitable. It's so profitable.
Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah. And the book, they hit that in 1984 a lot. Like I loved when he got the Goldberg book, and I was reading it a couple times, the quotes from the Goldberg book. It's like, I mean, it is. It's like everything was a retaliation for a retaliation for a retaliation. I mean, none of these people have been at peace. And there were a lot. I know we're kind of Swiss in 1984, but I mean, it's just what happened. It's significant right now with Iran striking Israel. It was like, war in the Middle East has started. Like, it didn't
when did
stop.
it end?
I'm like, it had to have stopped
ended.
for it to start. Like it didn't start. It never stopped. It's just
constant
more.
conflict.
Right. Everything's a retaliation for retaliation.
Always constant conflict. Especially in Israel. Like that's a nation divided.
Yeah.
It's just constantly in conflict over the same area where people pray.
Yeah. Yeah. So doublethink, very popular nowadays. Very popular. Urban decay, of course, and that was one thing that, I mean, when you get into that mindset in 1984, I think you can feel the not just the decay and the crumbling. They were talking about like razors, you couldn't get razors, and the alcohol was horrible and coffee was watered down. You can really feel not so much the poverty, because it was across the board. Like, unless you were inner party, it was just living with very little.
It was about keeping people just alive.
Right.
To be able
it was
to
just
perform.
minimal. Yeah. Yeah. minimal everything.
Yeah, you wouldn't want them to be too comfortable, because if they were too comfortable, they might have independent thought.
Yeah.
So just enough to keep them alive,
right,
and in just enough pain to not think about anything else.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's why the proles could never, like he says, hope in the proles, but that's how they could never really be the hope, because they're always just under that level. They're always just
they're just struggling to stay alive.
Right.
Yeah. When you're struggling to stay alive, how are you going to rise up against?
Not when you're just treading water.
Right. They're just treading water. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And they're just keeping us using that analogy. They're just, the whole society was kept where you're just treading water. And if you got a new pair of shoes in the last 5 years, you're doing good.
Right.
Yeah. And then it kind of keeps that kind of loyalty then as well too, just struck me, because if you're constantly kind of you don't have enough to share with your friends, you can't amass enough favors, kind of that community.
Right.
You're constantly having thought to yourself, it's
that every man for himself kind of thing. It's in an every man for himself. People turn against each other like that. Because there's not enough to go around. So you're right. You don't, you're not having people over for a barbecue.
Exactly. You're not going to have people over and stuff.
Right. You're just struggling to stay alive. Absolutely. And that is by design, right? And they show that, where it's, all the wars to bleed off all the resources so they can ensure that everyone is just barely able to function. All right. Well, I'm ready. That gets us to chapter 1, book 1, chapter 1. That was our build up. I know we've only got like 10 minutes. Maybe we do chapter 1 and call it. You guys are good with that? All right. All right. Nice. I just looked at the clock. I'm like, okay, but I mean, the same thing. We did the same thing on the last book, where we spent like an entire session just talking about Slaughterhouse-Five. And I think it's worthwhile to have that build up and just kind of share our thoughts and kind of set the stage, rather than just jumping in and be like, hey, chapter 1. I kind of like the idea. It seems to be working out that way, where we can read the book and just talk about it more than just getting into the chapters. So we should have enough time to do chapter 1. There's not too much, I guess a little bit, but we already covered some of the stuff I wanted to cover anyway. And to Spark Notes, right? I'm still using it. I'm cheating. Little Spark Notes, little Cliff Notes kind of stuff. I mean, some of the stuff, if I find it online and it looks good, I just borrow it instead of sitting down and rewriting it. For the next one, Zero Sum Conclusion, I'm probably going to have to write on my own. So I'll be back to writing my own book report on that one. But for now, this is easy.
Spark Notes.
It's easy. Honestly, sometimes it's just easier. Book 1, chapter 1. On a cold day in April 1984, a man named Winston Smith returns to his home, a dilapidated apartment building called Victory Mansions. Thin, frail, and 39 years old. It is painful for him to trudge up the stairs because he has varicose ulcer above his right ankle. The elevator is always out of service, so he does not try to use it. As he climbs the staircase, he's greeted on each landing by a poster depicting an enormous face, underscored by the words, "Big Brother is watching you." Winston is an insignificant official in the party, the totalitarian political regime that rules all of Airstrip 1, the land that used to be called England, as part of the larger state of Oceania. Though Winston is technically a member of the ruling class, his life is still under the party's oppressive political control. In his apartment, an instrument called a telescreen, big technology back then, which is always on, spouting propaganda, and through which the thought police are known to monitor the actions of citizens, like iPhones. So it shows a jury report about pig iron. Winston keeps his back to the screen. From his window, he sees the Ministry of Truth, where he works as a propaganda officer, altering historical records to match the party's official version of past events. Winston thinks about the other ministries that exist as the party's governmental apparatus: the Ministry of Peace, which wages war; the Ministry of Plenty, which plans economic shortages; and the dreadful Ministry of Love, the center of the inner party's loathsome activities, where they torture people. There's the saying, war is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. From a drawer, a little alcove hidden from the telescreen, Winston pulls out a small diary he recently purchased. He found the diary in a secondhand store in the proletarian district where the very poor live relatively unimpeded by party monitoring. The proles, as they're called, are so impoverished and insignificant the party does not consider them a threat to its powers. Winston begins to write in his diary, although he realizes that this constitutes an act of rebellion against the party. He describes the films he watched the night before. He thinks about his lust and hatred for a dark-haired girl who works in the fiction department and the Ministry of Truth, about an important inter-party member named O'Brien, a man he is sure is an enemy of the party. That doesn't work out too well. Winston remembers the moment before the day 2 minutes hate, an assembly during which party orators whipped the populace into a frenzy of hatred against the enemies of Oceania. Just before the hate began, Winston knew he hated Big Brother and saw the loathing in O'Brien's eyes. Winston looks down and realizes that he's written down with Big Brother over and over on his diary. He has committed thought crime, the most unpardonable crime, and he knows that the thought police will seize him sooner or later. Just then there's a knock at the door. So that's what we have, chapter 1, book 1. And some notes I had was the constant surveillance, the closed caption TV, and the idea of thought crime.
Right. Oh, well, they're in a bar.
Well, we go wait a minute, I guess.
Well, okay, something I noticed was that Winston buys the journal, but there's no tracking of him purchasing it. So there still was a modicum of freedom that we've kind of losing, that Orwell hadn't even considered in a way, because it's all on our phone, all on our, we've got all that tracking of everything we buy.
Right.
But we still do have a bit of freedom. We can go down to the op shops or to the little, corner shops or whatever with our coins and our cash, but we're slowly having that eroded away,
Yeah, right. Yeah, they've gone beyond Orwell's imagination in that sense, as you're saying, right? The idea that now pretty much every purchase is tracked, and especially when we're talking about digital currencies, absolutely every penny coming in and going out will be tracked.
Yep.
Yeah, and you're right. That wasn't so much something that he imagined, but it is very, very real today. Yeah. Yeah. And in a sense, even though he was able to go to the shop and not to give spoilers, but yeah, I mean, it was a thought police. The thought police was working the store anyway.
Yeah. I was thinking they've got a lot of people like that. Whoever would go into that type of shop wasn't party proper,
Right. Yeah, exactly. They already had that figured out. They knew all the dregs of society were going to end up there eventually. At the antique shop.
Yeah. I love antique shops.
Yeah, it was. Basically, it was an antique shop.
Yeah. Me too. Yeah.
All right. Well, we're pretty close to time. Should we wrap it up there?
Yeah.
Are you good? Should we just jump in, hit next Sunday? Jay, are you good for that?
Yeah.
Or your Monday?
Yeah, whatever you guys. Yeah. Whatever you guys. If you guys want to do, I like the week to week because I feel like it gives the momentum. But I mean, at the same time, I'm sort of in. Oh. Michelle's, we're still live.
No,
but it's up to you guys. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll plan on next weekend. No, it's okay. We'll plan on next weekend.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, I'm going to kill the live. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Awesome.